hitting the ground running is sacrosanct as far as having the discussion surrounding the broadcast on Democracy Day and reviewing the promises of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I'm being joined by distinguished guests, starting from my extreme left. I have a seasoned legal practitioner, a custodian of the law, and Barrister Emmanuel Obakbolo. Thanks for coming.
Pretty good morning to Nigerians. Good morning, Mr. Philip.
And next is an erudite social media influencer and a political economist, and he is Ibrahim Momo. Thanks for coming, Ibrahim.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, Nigerians. Happy Independence Day.
All right. We are still commemorating it. It's the anniversary.
Yeah.
And in the spirit of that, I think I will start with you, Barrister Emmanuel Obakbolo. Looking at the speech made by the president, what do you take out in terms of the brighter side for Nigerians?
I don't think there is anything special about the speech of the president, because since 1999, Nigerians have witnessed a lot of speeches with respect to Democracy Day. And all of those speeches have yielded no results. What I think Nigerians want just now is to see these speeches in action. That is just what Nigerians want. And going by what transpired before, during, and after the elections, Nigerians are not interested in speeches of this manner. Nigerians want to see how life could be better for them. Cum the fact that the subsidy remover is biting hard on Nigerians. So Nigerians want to see a situation where Nigerians can be united, because over the years, the politicians have politically separated Nigerians via the instrument of religion, ethnicity, and using poverty also to visit Nigerians. So Nigerians are not carried away with brilliant speeches. Instead, Nigerians want to see brilliant actions taken. To me, personally, I am not dissuaded, or I am not carried away by the speeches. However, I also see some good side with the speech, more so that there are certain questions that people like me would want to ask the president, maybe for better interpretation. And we use a platform like this to ask some of those questions. So as we progress, some of those questions may be put forth.
All right. Well, let me take a pull out from what you said, and also to tally it with what the president said in his speech, where he said that, those who cannot, endure the pain, or accept defeat in elections, do not deserve to enjoy the joy of victory when they triumph. If you put this together, what do you make of this pragmatic statement as regards the presidential election that just passed?
Well, the first thing is to say that yesterday I saw a president, I listened to a president, I watched him, somebody who has a grasp of the issues. Very rarely do we get Nigerian presidents who can speak to issues of national importance, of current challenges our people are, faced with. So, one of those issues was the issue of the post-election, a crisis, if I may. Of course, it touched on the issue of and the fuel subsidy and the pains.
Of course, that's the climax.
It talked about the heroes of our democracy. That, in fact, this democracy that we have it didn't come to us on a platter. In fact, since 1960, when Nigeria got independence, this is the longest we have had of a democratic experience.
Oh, yeah.
It touched on several issues, amongst others. But to take the point about, those who cannot take the pains of defeat do not deserve to enjoy the
joy of victory.
The joy of victory. It's a landmark statement to make.
A very landmark statement.
Why I say it's landmark is that in the nature of politics, particularly the kind of democratic experience that we practice as a country, it's a winner takes all. It's a zero-sum game, so to say, at all levels of elections. You have it, for every winner there is a loser. It's unlike the UK, the parliamentary system where you can have everybody is a winner. Because everybody who is elected across political parties, everybody who conducts the election across political parties get to be a member of government in parliament, and of course maybe the executive arm, the ruling party becomes the executive arm. But everybody is in government. But in a democracy, a presidential system like the one we practice, it's a winner takes all. So, and it is instrumental to note that the mere fact that somebody loses in an election is not a given that he would not win another election, and vice versa. If you take, for example, the immediate past president, the penultimate president of our country, Muhammadu Buhari, conducted in 2003, 2007, 2011. In all those elections, he lost. He didn't give up. 2015, he won. He won. You know, so that speaks to the fact, that explains, I think, the message that our president was trying to convey, that it is not enough, the mere fact that you have lost in one, and it is not only about the presidency. Okay. You know, a lot of Nigerians don't get the point that, again, I keep on stressing that there are 7 levels of election in Nigeria, and every one of those elections are important. We tend to just pivot on one person, the president. Whereas we have governors, 36 state governors, who themselves, Nigerian states are bigger than, the economies of Nigerian states are bigger than several countries in Africa. The country called Swaziland, the country called Eritrea, even in West Africa. After Nigeria, Lagos is the second largest economy in Africa, in West Africa. Lagos, a state in Nigeria. In fact, in the whole of Africa, Lagos is number 6 in terms of size of economy. So, Nigerian governors are like presidents in other countries. But we don't see how important that election is. Again, sometimes we face some critical issues, the issue of infrastructure as a country, infrastructure deficit. It is the duty of the legislator, the primary duty of a legislator is rulemaking, and part of rulemaking is the appropriation bill, approval of the appropriation bill, the budget of a country. Now, every constituency has what we call a constituency allowance, or a vote for the constituency. Okay. It is that constituency vote that determines what projects or programs are implemented over a fiscal year in a particular constituency. Nigeria is divided into 109 senatorial districts, 3 senatorial districts per state. That's times 36, which is 108. Then Abuja has 109. Every part of Nigeria is senatorial districts. And then Nigeria has 360 House of Rep constituencies. Nigeria also has 990 House of Assembly constituencies. All these constituencies are important. Whatever project eventually gets done there, or program gets implemented by government there, is something that the respective legislative arm of government has assented to or have concurred with. Sometimes we complain, we say our legislators are not performing. In fact, we praise legislators who cheat us. If a legislator gives you a wheelbarrow, it gives you keke napep, it gives you
a grinding machine,
a sewing machine, or a deep freezer, and then you applaud him. The opportunity cost of that deep freezer, of that sewing machine, of that grinding machine they are giving you, is that maybe there's a key infrastructure. For example, Edo, we have the Benin, Ekpoma, Auchi highway. It's supposed to be a highway, but those who plan that will tell you that it's nothing like an highway anymore. That money for keke napep, for a grinding machine, could have been used for that. But because you will appreciate the senator, which Edo citizen, with all due respect, not everyone, I don't appreciate it. And I'm not sure you do too. But the average Edo citizen will prefer the senator who gives him or her a motorbike or a keke napep to the one who is fixing the critical infrastructure that we have. So I'm saying that the main fact that people have lost elections in this round of elections at whatever level, it's not only about the presidency. They have the right to ventilate their grievances at the courts, the tribunal, and of course maybe even appeal to the Supreme Court. But that is only an aspect of it. The main fact that somebody has told us today means that tomorrow is a chance to win. That's how I concur with what the president has said in that regard.
Thank you very much for your very elaborate analysis in that. As a political economist, you really shown your erudite skill in that direction. Well, let's look at what you also said and just oppose with what uh, learned colleague said in that direction. You know, there's this team spirit that is expected, you know, in sportsmanship. And of course, when one loses, it's expected that the one that lost, you know, have a warm embrace with the winner. And in it all, it shouldn't be seen as there is a loser or there's a winner. It should have been a team spirit where even those who literally lost in the election are supporting those who won to make sure that the government works. Don't forget, it's all about, you know, restoring hope for Nigeria. It's all about salvaging the country. Shouldn't this be the way to go, irrespective of the fact that we still have litigations in court?
Yes, one issue, vital issue that one must consider here is one, whether the elections were transparent enough. Were they free, fair, and credible? Over the years, since 1999, we've had question marks on our elections, general elections. Even local government elections.
I think it's a general thing.
Yes, even local government.
No election in the world is really perfect.
No.
Correct.
No. But there is an atom of transparency.
How do you talk about the American election that is still being debated?
That's why I said, despite the fact that no elections in the world, because man himself is an imperfect being. So you don't expect perfection from that man. However, there are certain percentage of transparency we will see and say, these elections is transparent. For instance, the 1999 general elections. No Nigerian who was of age as at that time wouldn't tell you that that election was transparent. Does that mean there were no itches? Does that mean there were no skirmishes in that elections? They were.
You're talking about relativity.
Yes, but when you see the level of transparency, you now give up. And that's why that election was one of the elections that there were nothing like tribunals, nothing like court issues. Nobody argued it, save for the government of the day, who, for reasons best known to them, annulled the elections. And that caused a lot of trouble. But the one we just witnessed, for goodness sake, was there an atom of transparency? The answer is a no. And mind you, the president made a statement because, this is my mind, there is a question of legitimacy hanging on his neck. So, the president should know that he cannot, by that statement, weaken the people who have chosen to question the issue of legitimacy hanging on him. Is another manipulative way to arrogantly mock the people who have asked questions.
Like you said, to your mind.
Yes, who have asked questions with respect to the elections that was conducted. So, where the issue of legitimacy is so bright, as we saw, and that we were still seeing, then there could be an avenue to begin to have some way, use phrases, clauses, to see how you can manipulate all those persons. Nobody, nowhere in the world where democracy is not embraced just now. But then, what is democracy? Since 1999, have Nigerians really experienced the dividends of democracy? And do you know that the dividend of democracy starts from the elections? If the elections is transparent, that is a dividend of democracy. Also, when the elections is not transparent, then there is no dividend of democracy. So, when you now come to an epoch where you think you cannot make speeches with respect to what is at the court or tribunal, I think, to my mind, the better way to go is to allow the court to do what the court needs to do. Whichever direction it goes. But where you begin to use language to see how you want to weaken the court, to my mind, is something to reject it.
Thank you, Barrister Emmanuel. As you are really dressed, as your profession really addresses in that direction, and it shows in your dressing. And basically, you always have a way of feeding my thoughts with issues to talk about. and you brought about the issue of legitimacy. We're going to hold that for a while we talk about issues concerning the speech made by the president, alongside the aspect where he said, don't forget the fact that during the inauguration speech, he made mention of subsidy is gone. Subsidy on petrol is gone. From that start, the ripples effect have been devastating. We all are feeling the brunt, the pain, that came with that statement. And they say there's no gain without pain. And he also said that the pains we go through are temporal, and they are the pains that we must go through to make sure that Nigeria doesn't go under. I'm a bit skeptical. I'm a bit worried. I'm a bit concerned about how long will Nigerians go through this pain, looking at the harsh economic effect that is having on Nigerians, you and I, and of course even the others in the street, the inflation rate that is skyrocketing, items are difficult to purchase. How long are we going to feel this pain?
Well, let me note that first and foremost, the entire African economy, total 54 countries, total value of Africa's GDP is less than 2% of global GDP. The United States of America alone is 24% of global GDP. Just about 1/4 of total GDP is in the US alone. Look at the UK, around 5%. Look at the European Union. The European Union is the second largest economy in the world, combined, second largest economy in the world, outside of the US. Those countries don't have consumptive subsidy like we have in Nigeria. They don't.
Is it not because they have a system running, unlike what we have in Nigeria?
Is
it not because the GDP in terms of what they take home, and the value of the currency, is still at par with the welfare of the citizens? Is it not because there are certain items or benefits that the citizens, get from the system?
You have to lay the groundwork for
if you put all of this to bear, how does that juxtapose with what you're saying?
No, you actually laying the groundwork, because I was just a prefix to what I'm going to say. The other point is what you are already trying to allude to, is the fact that before we even address that point, the other point to note is that if you look at the pump price of refined petroleum products globally, it's not in anywhere where Nigeria is. And then the third thing to look at, where Nigeria was, to say. Because, for example, if you ask someone in the UK, they use per litre in the UK. It was, at the time, it was about £2 per litre of petrol. These are something that it's a public, something you can verify. Now, you now add that to the fact that what is the opportunity cost? Because you're looking about political economy of fuel subsidy. What is the opportunity cost? What are you losing? What are you giving up as a result of this purported fuel subsidy that you seem to be, Nigerians think we are enjoying? Is that if you look at the 2023 budget, the current budget, in fact, Peter Obi, one of the presidential candidates, main presidential candidate, alluded to this point repeatedly in the course of his campaign. The total amount budgeted for the key sectors of education, for health, and for infrastructure is about 3.7 trillion naira in this year's budget. For the first half of this year's budget alone, January to June, the amount that has been budgeted for fuel subsidy is equivalent to that amount.
Subsidy figures are not transparent.
They are not. That is the issue. The issue of, the subsidy per se is a cover for the sleaze and the corruption that that concept has come to mean. Subsidy removal does not actually translate to fuel price increase. Shouldn't translate to it. For example, those who increase the pump price of fuel at the filling stations immediately on Monday, the 29th of May, they had old stock. And they got those old stock at old prices. But immediately the president reminded Nigerians that going forward, there will be no subsidy on petroleum products. These same Nigerians who own filling stations, who dispense fuel at petrol filling stations, adjusted astronomically the price of those petroleum. That was fraud. So subsidy has come to represent a whole gamut of fraud, from government to organized private sector to even the opoloi, the market woman, the bus driver. Everybody was recently in Cameroon. I'm sure a lot of us would have seen it, even our viewers would have seen it, of protestations going on because of fuel subsidy removal in Nigeria.
Can you imagine? Does it have a spiral effect? Because that's what he's suggesting. That is what maybe there's a connection with the fuel being subsidized, by what they also get over there.
The fuel Nigeria was subsidizing was, I think, about 66 million liters per day. Recent figures we are hearing from NNPC Limited is that it is now 13 million liters. From 66 million, these are information that is public knowledge. I'm not speaking something that I verified, but our viewers can also verify. And I'm sure the journalists would have come across these figures.
Okay.
It has fallen from 66 million liters to 13 million liters daily consumption. That is because the market for illegal...
The reality is now bearing...
No, the people who are stealing our fuel and selling it in neighboring countries. Nigeria was supplying West Africa.
Okay.
We'll come back there. A country that does not have what you don't have. This thing you are calling fuel subsidy, fuel price, it's what they call landing costs. It is the amount it costs to import refined petroleum products from abroad.
We'll come back there, most especially as we look at the transparent figures in that direction about the landing cost and who really fixes this price. Should it be the NNPCL and, of course, the lapses that we have in the Petroleum Industry Act, the need for us to look at amendment in that direction? We're going to be looking at that. As I'm seeing you having a very wet appetite to react strongly to what he said. But I'm going to give you that opportunity to do that after this time out, where we take a short break. Do stay with us. Thank you for joining us once more on TMI as we look at the Democracy Day broadcast review of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu promises. While we had a break, we were opportune to be joined by a seasoned lecturer at University of Benin, a political scientist, Neville Obakedo. Thanks for coming, Neville.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers at home.
Okay, before I come to you to interact with the issues on the ground, you have the floor, Emmanuel Obakolo. What do you take as reactions to what Ibrahim said?
Whenever I hear a Nigerian or Nigerians applaud subsidy removal, the question that begs for answers in my mind is there anywhere in the world where government does not subsidize cost of living for the people with respect to the welfare of the people? And the answer is an emphatic no. So, what I expect from this government, just like we saw in the previous one, from 2015, this same crop of leaders told us that there was nothing like subsidy. And do you know, to this very moment, I believe them. That's why I have problem with subsidy removal. I think the issue with subsidy in Nigeria is the corruption. What I anticipate from the government is for the government to fight corruption with respect to subsidy squarely. But for them to tell us that there is nothing like subsidy and later on come back and say there is subsidy, Philip, I do not agree with them. Because every one of us is feeling pains just now.
That will be temporal anyways.
I don't want to know whether it is temporal or not. And then there is nothing like interim suffering. Because just now, I am not seated well. Because I'm feeling the pains. And those who are there at the top, to quote that man some time ago, the NCDC civil defense man, is that at a point, even the National Assembly members went home with what they called hardship allowance.
Hardship allowance.
What allowance was given to Nigerians? We have now come to an era where Nigerians subsidize governance for those in government. That is worrisome. So the government should not tell me that they have removed subsidy absolutely. And just like my co-discussant here quoted, said the consumption of all the
consumption rates has reduced.
Yes, from 66 to million to 30 million.
Yes.
All those are gimmicks.
No. But is it not also possible, just like he said, you still have the floor, just like he said, is it not also possible that the reduction is not merely because they are being taken out of the country, subsidized products are being used by other countries and nationals, but is it not also possible that because the price has gone up, Nigerians can't afford to consume the way they used to consume it? Because, like, take for instance, some of us who used to fill our vehicle tanks, are unable to do that. I even find it difficult to get a half-full tank. Now, don't you think that could be the reason, and not necessarily
the question
being
that
pulled from the country?
The question that should be asked: who is in charge of the importation of fuel, refined product? Who is in charge?
Very important question.
Who is in charge?
These are the lapses we are looking at.
So,
and
that is why I said there is corruption in the petroleum industry. And the government is pretending not to know that.
Do you see more amendments in the Petroleum Industry Act?
It is not just amending the act. The laws we have just now, they are sufficient. But the execution of the laws are the problem. Like just now, they said oil producing communities must have a committee who will represent those communities. Go and find out whether that is existing. They are just there on paper as provided for by the law. So, corruption is in every facet of our economy. But the one in the petroleum industry is a giant that every person can see, even the blind.
Okay.
And that is what we expect the government to fight. And not to tell me that they have removed subsidy absolutely. See the pains today.
Okay, let's take your plight in this whole issue about the Democracy Day, what positives it has given to Nigerians from May 29 when it was, and now June 12, and the democratic government we've had, uninterrupted from 1999 till date. Has it been a blessing to Nigeria? And most especially as we look at the announcement of the subsidy removal on petrol and the hardship Nigerians are presently going through. And the president promised that it's going to be temporary, and this could be the sacrifice that we must make as Nigerians for the country not to go under, and also saying that there's going to be a massive investment in transportation infrastructure, health, education, and electricity, power. What do we see as hope, for Nigeria in all of this that the president said? Neville.
I thank you for having me. Yesterday, while Nigeria was marking Democracy Day, I was busy marking my birthday with my twin sister at home.
Oh.
And so
belated happy birthday. I remember you said so.
Thank you.
That was yesterday.
Listen to Mr. President.
Okay.
President Tinubu, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And you see, my take is that we only have a Federal Republic of Nigeria as a nation state, but the character of a state, ability to compel obedience, ability of the state to coerce disobedient citizens, bringing them to justice, is missing. And so when we talk about subsidy and the criminality plus the corruption in that sector, presidents after presidents, whether military president, whether military head of state, and civilian president, they come outside to tell Nigerians that we have unscrupulous elements, or patriotic elements, powerful individuals, as the government of Jonathan will call it, that are making the nation dry through subsidy and all the rest of them. It is only one thing that one word you can use to qualify them. The admittance of failure. That the failure of leadership. Now, the state, anywhere there's a state, you say a state, the American state. For instance, if an American is trapped in Nigeria and the government is aware, they come here to take their citizens to safety. That is a state. That is ability of a state to assert itself. Now, we have president and commander-in-chief, we have service chiefs, we have the general police, we have the chief justice of Nigeria, we have all the branches of government. They are intact, the organs of government are intact, but they cannot be deployed to assert the character, the power of the state.
But you talk about the part of rescuing. It's not just America. Is Nigeria not also involved?
Which people?
Like the Sudan crisis.
Nigeria,
the Sudan crisis, for instance.
Don't let us talk about the issue of rescuing Nigerians from a war-torn country. That's not what we are talking about. Nigeria is not war-torn. If an American is trapped in Ghana, Ghana is not war-torn. They go to Ghana to rescue their person. What I'm trying to tell you is that America have a national interest, and that national interest supersedes the interest of an unpatriotic group, the interest of a president, and the interest of powerful cliques that assist the president to run the affairs of the country. In the case of Nigeria, the Nigeria state is weak to the extent that the powers of the state are arrogated to individuals. These individuals now act in the name of the state. That is why a reformer military general can be president of Nigeria. He will also be petroleum minister for 8 years.
But we are under a new leadership. We are under a new leadership.
Yes,
hope in this direction.
We cannot be talking about this leadership without talking of the leadership that led to this leadership. That is the reason why I'm making reference to the government of President Muhammadu Buhari, military head of state before, later civilian president, then minister for petroleum before. When he was a military man, was minister for petroleum. He came back again as head of state, as president, to become minister for petroleum. If you know what happened during the period that he was a minister for petroleum and president and commander-in-chief of this country. So, yeah, I listened to the president yesterday when he was talking about the decision by his predecessor in office to remove subsidy. The question is, was there subsidy before in the first instance? Was there subsidy? If there was subsidy, who were the people making the nation dry? Does the state, the Nigerian state, don't have that power? Is the state not having the inherent character to bring to justice those who have defrauded it in the past, in the present, and in the future? If we have a legal practitioner here, if we tell you, based on the position of the law, that crimes against the state, they know no bound, because when you commit a crime and the state discovers it, the state can retrospectively, so long as there's a law to that effect, deal with you and bring you to justice. So if there are laws in this country, as I referred to just now, and which are in the public space, and there are persons that are identified as Nigerians who are not stronger than the state, who are not state themselves personified, and they have plundered this nation, and the president is alluding to that in his speech, and the previous president, they are alluding to that in their speeches, and the people are still moving freely. They have investment in Nigeria and investment outside.
Do you by this mean that you are not at home with the fuel subsidy removal?
The question I say they should ask the elite.
Has there been fuel subsidy?
Yes, has there been a subsidy before? If there was subsidy, how come there was corruption in the subsidy process and those perpetrators of corruption in that process were not brought to justice? That is one. Number two, if they want to remove subsidy, as the president has said that his predecessor has removed it, subsidy is gone. Other countries where they had subsidy, whether in education, in agriculture, in oil, in fuel, and the rest of them, when they wanted to remove subsidy, how did they remove it? Did they just remove the subsidy through speeches of Mr. President, or the stakeholders and those that are in the value chain of benefiting from oil and the subsidy, they are brought to the table and people bring their ideas on how to cushion the effect of subsidy? Is that not how it is done? Would you remove subsidy before you start talking about investment in infrastructure. You remove subsidy before you talk about investment in education. You remove subsidy before you now talk about electricity. Have they not been budgeting money for electricity, and people have been cornering the money? Where is the power of the state to bring those people to justice?
But are you forgetting the fact that we are running a deficit budget, and the humongous amount for subsidy, can now be tapped into, this infrastructural development that has been stated by the president?
Now let me tell you something. If you look at, we are doing a paper on oil theft, that is the stealing of crude oil and refined products in Nigeria. The stolen crude and refined products, they find their way to Europe, Asia, and America. The money that is gotten from this illicit business, which is not coming to the ports of the country, and the country cannot tax it, is laundered across different countries of Europe, whether France, whether America, whether Britain, and so on. Now, if you take a look at the statistics, the figures of oil theft in the past 6 years, it's more than the budget of Nigeria. That is money that the oil that be stolen from Nigeria, and the cost of the oil, not that they stole it and went to dump it somewhere. As they are stealing it, there's already a ready market for it. They are selling it, and the money is in the pockets of people, and the money is more than the budget of this country. And Nigeria budget is not supposed to be running on a deficit, because the money that we are making from oil alone is enough to power the country. This money is in the hands of individuals. Now, the other day, as recent as 2021, the National Assembly set up a committee to investigate remittances from oil and gas company, and they discovered that in about 3 years, 70 oil and gas companies did not remit more than half of Nigeria budget to the country. Gbajabi Amila, who is now the chief of the chief of staff to Mr. President, who was the chairman, was the chairman of the House of Representatives and chairman of the committee that was investigating that matter. What happened to that money? What happened to those companies? Okay. They are still there running their businesses, and they are still refusing to remit money into the account of the ports of the government. You remember how Sanusi was removed the other day when he was saying that there is a particular amount of money, about 40-something billion US dollar, that was supposed to be remitted by NNPC that was not remitted. How was this man Kachuku removed as a group managing director of NNPC, and later removed as Minister of State for Petroleum? Is it not the way he was talking about Mekati Baru and the way he was manipulating the NNPC contract and the rest of them? So when we are talking about subsidy and all these things that we are talking about, we cannot be talking about subsidy removal without talking about the things that other people in other countries are enjoying in terms of subsidy, exactly, of education. Exactly
what we brought before Ibrahim, looking at the examples you made about Europe, UK, America, and there is need for us to look at what is on the table. Now, don't you think the issue about investment in infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, for instance, health, power, and other sectors, don't you think that should have been a priority, over the subsidy removal?
Well, I think the points are not different. There's nobody who's going to argue, even it's an view as a thrown up a couple of questions. The issue of, has there been subsidy before?
A big question.
The reality to ask is that, well, like it or not, there was subsidy. Because the pump price was not the reality. If these petroleum products were coming from abroad, like we know, the pump price was not exactly what we were paying, what it was costing to bring it. There was subsidy. Now, this subsidy that there was, well, how come that it was not, it comes at a cost, an arm and a leg? Are people, the same point I made with the issue of legislators and their tokenism, when they give you kakena pet instead of doing your infrastructure. The same thing, we are saying we are paying a reduced price for petroleum products. But are we not losing much more than what we are giving in terms of utility cost? Subsidies is a universal phenomenon. We have agreed on set. But is it only in imported refined petroleum products you have subsidy? No. For example, education. He is a lecturer. He knows, for example, what Nigerians pay as for education in public university vis-a-vis what is paid in private universities. The private universities, they are not overcharging. I get from some information, I can't say, there are some private universities like Covenant, like Afi Babalola University, the figures are millions. You know, so we are saying that there are subsidies across, but it is not only in imported, refined petroleum products. That's not only where we have subsidies. There are other kinds of subsidies. But I'm saying that if there is corruption in the system, which nobody argues that there's no corruption. There's corruption in the system. Everybody agrees on that. What is the way forward on it? I agree that Nigerians are having pains. Yours truly too. I may be on set in Benin now, but I don't work in Benin. Like you know, I'm talking about Benin. I don't work in Benin. So it means that my journey to office is a travel.
Okay, but just like Nevis said, you still have the floor. Now, the aspect of investigating this whole issue about money missing as a result of as in funding, subsidy on petrol, shouldn't that be a priority for the government?
It is a priority, not just should it not be. It is a priority. The issue is following through. The key one we have had were two, the Ag Democracy panel and the Farouk Lawan panel of 2012. How did those panels end? Farouk Lawan was framed up and dumped. That he asked Femi Otedola, one of the key players in this industry, this is public knowledge, that he asked for $50,000 bribe, $50,000 bribe. On the basis of that, every work that he did in 2020 was thrown away. The man self didn't return to the House of Reps. That was the end of that probe. These individuals, again, like my colleague has pointed out, are so powerful. They earn equivalent of what Nigerian state, even more what Nigerian state earn from our own petroleum products. Okay. They have the war chest to defeat any government, to depose any government. People have said that it was Okonjo-Iweala in her book, I can't remember the title of the book now. She spoke to the fact that reforming the reformable, that's the name of the book. She spoke to the fact of how the cabal in the industry fought back. A case in point was that her mother was kidnapped. Her mother. So these issues are not as simple as I look at them. These people are, and sometimes they even use the people with the Nigerians to fight the policy. The challenge is that Nigerians seem not to trust the government. That is it. The past and even the present. No, even me. There's this challenge of the subsidy removed from diesel. Yes. What was it used for? The one removed from kerosene. What was it used for? Even the one used from gas. Now, what is the guarantee that when this money is removed, like it has been, and shared among the 3 tiers of government, the federal, the state, local, what's the guarantee that if it gets to the hands of these politicians, that is going to trickle down to the benefit of the masses? That is the key question. If we agree as a nation that subsidy is a fraud, the whole subsidy regime is corrupt, it's a corruption personified, it's about corruption, essentially, if we agree on that nation. And the result of that, it's not tenable to hold on to that argument that we should continue to do subsidy because it's a fraud. Now, the key point, therefore, is that when you remove subsidy, what do we get as a result? That is where Nigerians should ask questions. We should not just take that, okay, it will reduce the deficit, but it is not enough. It's not enough. We should tie the revenues that accrue from fuel subsidy removal to deliberate public policy, whether it is in the area of education, whether it is in the area of health, it's infrastructure, it's whatever it is, and just must ask questions. Because we make a mistake, even in the amount workers are paid, even if it is the area of social welfare schemes, people don't have jobs in some countries, some of those countries, they get welfare packages. Okay. What do Nigerians get when they are jobless? What is the value of the take home of a Nigerian worker? Does he take it home? Okay, I'll come back to you to round off on that in 1 minute. Let's take your viewpoint in all of this.
I think Mr. Ibrahim Momo has changed his mind. No, I'm happier that he has come to agree with my co-discussant here, Mr. Neville and myself. You see, there are so many issues in Nigeria. With all due respect, that's why I describe Nigeria as a community of fairy tales. At any point in time, anybody can just wake up to get the attention of Nigeria, just raise an issue. And that is what the government is doing. The government know those who are into these sharp practices in the petroleum industry. First and foremost, the government has succeeded in reducing all factors with respect to life and living in Nigeria to petroleum. And that is why you see the government keeps talking about subsidy in the petroleum industry. For goodness sake, like in America, there's subsidy on wheat. In Europe, there's subsidy on gas. What subsidy have we enjoyed in this country? I heard over the news in your platform here that the president has signed the student loan bill into law. I said, good. Then the laws, with respect to it, that any student who fails to pay back after a certain period risk 2-year jail term. I begin to wonder, what is student loan? These persons who went to school in their time, did they go to school on loan?
Okay.
That they were meant to pay back, and how much have they paid back to the Nigerian state?
All right, thank you.
So a lot of issues.
Okay, thank you. We understand that we cannot interact with these issues in just this segment, and we will continue to, be interfaced with it and look at ways to prove a solution in that direction. But let's take your round of points in 1 minute, each of you, starting with you, Neville.
The first thing is that MKO Abiola, as a symbol of democratic governance in Nigeria, laid his life down, and several other persons, like our own Attorney Nahoro, and other persons who were traveling from one part of the country to escape the crisis, and they died. I expect the government of Tinubu, who was part of those that struggled for actualization of June 12 and democracy in the country, to identify those who died, who lost their lives. As MKO was given GCF fellowship honor, and then Baba Ganaki Gibe given GCON honor. Such people should also be identified and be given National Merit Award, and then they should pay some compensation to the family so that they will not have died in vain in the name of democracy. Okay. Lastly, Mr. President should, any major decision that is going to take that will affect all Nigerians, he should always call the stakeholders in that sector to discuss with them on the way forward. This is, when he does this, he would have done democratic justice to Nigerians.
Thank you very much for that. Let's take your viewpoint in 1 minute, Ibrahim.
Very quickly, to say that Nigerians must realize that in the electoral process, in the democratic process, there are different stakeholders. The critical stakeholder is the electorate. That is the highest office of the land. It's not the president, the office of the citizen. And until we take back our sovereignty, we'll continue to complain about these issues. Nigerians deserve...
If they are not coerced.
I don't know what you mean by coerced. If you look at the last election, you are raising issues. You look at that, look at that election, everybody won where they were strong. The Southeast was played by Peter Obi. 4 out of the 6 states of the Southwest was won by Tinubu because it's a Yoruba. Atiku won virtually every state in the North, including Katsina, the former president's home state, including Kanu, the hotbed where the APC gets its majority votes.
So it was highly contested.
Yes, he won in Katsina, in Kaduna, and in Kanu.
No,
in Kanu it was NNPP. It was NNPP, but the ruling party did not win there. So everybody won. The point I was making that everybody won where they were strong.
Really?
Yeah. You get the point. They were won in their own base.
So it was highly contested.
Yeah, highly contested.
And it was free and fair.
It wasn't free and fair.
Oh.
There are no free or fair elections anywhere in the world. Nobody can argue that. There are no free and fair elections anywhere in the world. But what we have, at least again, maybe the degree of fairness.
Are you saying that it's not possible?
To have a free and fair election.
Yes.
When you have human beings, I'm a serious scientist, a political scientist. So
okay.
When you have human beings,
that's why you are a political scientist, to bring about solutions to this myriad of issues we're having. Because if you are seated here and you're saying that there seems to be no hope that there will be one day a free and fair election, then it takes our minds worried.
The point is this, that elections have their challenges. And it's something that we have to realize that those challenges can only be solved by the citizens, the electorate. It is not, if you vote in, it's like in computer lingo, garbage in, garbage. If you vote in bad leaders, you're going to get bad policies. Not to see qua non.
Okay, but don't forget again, there are still the need to set the electoral law straight. Like the challenge we had in the previous election, where there were technical breakdown in terms of the devices being used. So,
what that device
so don't you think that's a challenge that will also rob the electorate of their vote counting?
You see, we tend to conflate issues. What the challenge with the last election was that results were not uploaded
electronically
in real time.
In real time.
It is not that people did not vote. It's not that votes were not declared. The election is about people's ability to vote and the votes declared.
Okay, but by that delay, it brought about questions on transparency.
Yes, you can talk about. That's why I said that there are
which affects the free and fair posture of every election.
The key point about elections is that elections, people are allowed to freely vote without inducements and without coercion, and that their votes count. Okay,
thank you. I think I've taken much time for that for you to ventilate that. Let's take your final
Section 14,
report on this.
Sub 2A of the 1999 Constitution as amended provides thus sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria. In the last election, did that reflect? Did that manifest? And also, the president should know that there's a social contract between him and the people of Nigeria. And that social contract should be seen manifest in the lives of Nigeria. Because the first step the president took was a wrong one.
So it should build legitimacy in governance.
Yes.
Because you seem to say that that is missing. Because you said that earlier, and I told you that we're going to go back on that.
Yes.
So you said that is missing. So what do you see about legitimacy in governance as it appears just now? And how can that be corrected?
That would be determined by the courts. That is why I said any matter that has to do with the courts, that is already in court, is a matter that all we need to do is to fold our hands and cross our legs.
Okay.
And wait for the court to come.
Okay, but don't forget what
legitimacy. I did say, and I'm repeating, that this present government, the president, has the issue or the question of legitimacy hanging on his neck.
Don't forget what Nevis said concerning intimating these issues, with stakeholders, before taking decisive actions.
Good.
As a president, don't you think that is important?
Very important. That is why I said the first step he took, the first step he took was a wrong one. Because ordinarily, commonsensically, the president ought to have called the stakeholders, call experts in that field. People like our lecturer here, you call them, they will give you advice.
Okay.
But when you think I know it all, no man knows it all, except that man is trying to manifest the principle of absolute power corrupts absolute.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel Bakpolo, a very fine barrister at law, for taking our time to be part of this discussion.
Thank you.
And big thanks to you, political economist. I admire you always, Ibrahim Momo. And of course, the erudite Neville Obakedo is quite awesome for your magnanimity and being part of this discussion. Well, there's the dexterity that we're taking at this level of discussion. We now pass the baton to the Abuja Network Center for a continuation, where Joseph Kadiri is standing by. Good morning, Joseph.